Hello again, and welcome to the latest edition of the Roy Williams Show. My name is Jones Angel, along with the Hall of Fame head coach of the Tar Heels, Roy Williams. We'll be talking Carolina basketball for the next hour or so. That includes looking back at the win over Pittsburgh. We'll find out how the Tar Heels handled this past weekend with no game. Matchup with Clemson coming up tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. And, of course, we'll answer some of your questions for the head coach of the Heels. All that coming up. Plus, we also have an interview with Walker Miller, which I think you'll enjoy listening to. We'll get Coach's thoughts on the senior for the Tar Heels as well. But, Coach, great to see you again. And it was just one game since we last met. That was an impressive win for your team back on Tuesday night, 75-65 over Pitt. And felt like an important win for your group, topping a Pitt team, which was playing well, but even maybe more importantly, doing so on the road.
You know, I think all of those are true, Jones. I think it was important for our team just to have a little more confidence. The better you play, the better you should play.
Yeah.
And I think that getting us some confidence to win on the road, I think, is important to us because we've got a few more of them coming up straight here.
Yeah.
So we need to be doing that. But I also think Pittsburgh had done some really good things at home. And I think that we made some shots, we made some plays down the stretch, and we didn't do a very good job on Champagny, and that's ones we said we wanted to do a good job on, but we didn't do a very good job there. But at the same time, did some good things defensively, made some shots. Armando and Garrison were big for us inside, and that's where we thought we had an advantage.
I was going to mention that Armando and Garrison combined 37 points, 16 rebounds. Those two were 16 of 21 from the field. In total, Coach, 48-32, your team had the advantage in the paint.
Well, I think that was the key factor in the game. And I think most times if we can make that an important factor, it doesn't have to be the most important,
right,
but if we can make that an important factor in the game, that's always going to help us. Those guys, 16 for 21, we should have got them 41 shots. That's the way I look at it. But I do think it was a nice win for us. And with the break over the weekend, it let us have good feelings for a little bit longer than we've normally been able to do.
You guys had a stretch, Coach, I can't remember the exact games, but where it seemed like the big guys were having trouble finishing consistently in the paint. Felt like maybe that Notre Dame, Miami in that time period. What has changed recently with your guys? Because those shooting efficiencies for guys like Armando and Garrison have gone way up here as of late.
Well, it should, and we work on it in practice every day. And at the same time, I emphasize the shots that we're working on now are the shots that you're going to get in the game. And so let's concentrate on them and make them even more in practice, and hopefully that'll correlate really well to what we're doing in the game as well. But we do need to do a better job of getting them the ball. They need to do a better job of holding off inside and trying to go straight up and make it a simple power move as opposed to a whirling dervish kind of thing.
Your team had a 16-point lead in this game at the under 8-minute timeout. Pitt made a run, as good teams do, but your guys answered. That felt like a big moment for you, for your team, to answer what was a strong push from Pitt.
Well, you know, Wake Forest had a 10-point lead in 4 minutes, and all of a sudden Pitt has a shot to win the game.
Yep.
And so we knew that they have that ability to come back, and yet we still have to weather the storm, do some things ourselves. And, you know, the crazy thing is I thought we had played really well and got some stops the last 3 or 4 minutes of the game, and they didn't score, but neither did we.
Yeah.
You know, so we had an offensive foul. We had a missed layup in there that you like to make sure that you don't have those kind of things. But I think, as I'll use your terminology, I think you said weathered the storm, and I think that's what we have to do in games, particularly on the road, because the other team usually is going to make some kind of run at you.
Caleb Love hit a big three in that stretch that we're talking about. Also had just 5 assists, and just 1 turnover in the game for the Tar Heels. Coach, last thing, you guys had 6 blocks in the game. You're averaging, not a huge number, averaging about 4.5 per game, but it feels like that's something that was missing the last year or two that has really been a big boost for your team this season.
Well, it was definitely last year. Well, you could say both the last 2 years we haven't had a rim protector, and I think with Dayron and Walker Kessler coming off the bench, Garrison, and then Armando, we do have 4 guys who can protect the rim and are doing it better this year than we have the last couple of years for sure.
So Carolina wins the game over Pitt, 75-65. Again, that was this past Tuesday. Tar Heels didn't play this past weekend. And, Coach, how'd you handle the weekend with no game? Did you give the guys time off? How'd you manage the time?
A little bit of both. We gave them 2 full days off completely. We brought them in to do a lot of shooting on one day, and then brought them in and had a big practice on Sunday, and hopefully trying to get ready for Clemson Tuesday night. But I think you got to try to balance it, be concerned about their legs, particularly the guys who are playing over 30 minutes a game. And I think also giving them some time off is really good to let them recharge a little bit too.
Coach had a question from Kate Leslie that I want to bring up now just because it's relevant to what we're talking about. Her question was just trying to structure things to keep momentum. And do you feel like that's a real thing? You guys have been playing well here as of late, and then all of a sudden you have a break. Do you keep that in mind when you're trying to structure how you handle things?
I don't really think so about having the break because the season is so long. You know, if you get a break, you think, golly, bum, this is great. You know, you don't worry about it. You want them to refresh their bodies. And I think taking care of their bodies at this time of year is just as important as anything else you can do. And so having the time that they can go in there and do some things in the weight room, in the training room, and refresh those muscles a little bit. You got to do it mentally. I think it's a good break for them mentally. You know, you can say something, well, the time period off does hurt you, but I've never believed that. I believe we practice really, really hard, and we try to play really, really hard all the time. And I think sometimes you need to just step back a little bit and see if you can get you a breath and then start back up again.
Tar Heels do that, get going again tomorrow night. It's in Clemson against the Tigers. We'll preview that matchup later in the show. We're going to get to some of your questions for the head coach of the Tar Heels. Mentioned that Walker Miller interview coming up in a little bit as well. All of that still to come as we move through the hour here on the Roy Williams Show from Learfield IMG College. Back on the Roy Williams Show. Thanks again for joining us this evening. Again, having to do the show a little differently, just like everything else this year. Had to make some adjustments. Recording with Coach on Mondays for air on Monday night. And a reminder, you can send questions in, and we're going to get to some of your questions here soon. You can send them in really throughout the week. It's asktheheels@gmail.com. That's the email address. Or shoot me a tweet. It's at Jones Angel. Angel has 2 L's at the end. And, Coach, do want to get to some questions and some other Carolina stuff, but some big news in the ACC with John Swafford, of course, former Tar Heel football player, former AD at Carolina. John Swafford retiring, and we knew that was going to happen, but his last day as ACC commissioner was Friday. I'd just be interested in some of your memories with John and what you feel like he has meant to the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Well, I hope John's having a good time right now and not listening to us.
That's right. Has better things to do.
I hope he's found better things, a warmer spot. It's a little chilly outside here in Chapel Hill today. But, no, John's a great friend. John and I were in school together here at the same time. I knew him. He didn't know me, but that was okay. And then when I came back as assistant, John was here in the business office and later became the athletic director here. But just a great, great person in athletics, has an athletic feel for everything, has a businessman's approach to it, and has never lost the ability to care about people. And I think that's a true testament to John. He cares about every team, every coach, every student-athlete, trying to think what's best for the student-athlete. And that's way, way up on his list, if not the first thing that he always thinks about. But he's a guy that was and still is and always will be a North Carolina Tar Heel, and he did a great job for our league. Our league grew immensely and did great things, started the network, started so many things that John should be very proud of. I'm happy to see him retire, and I'm sad to see him because we've lost somebody that's great in college athletics. And John Swafford, again, his best quality to me is that he did care for the people all the time.
Really is amazing, how long Commissioner Swafford was in that role, more than 20 years leading the Atlantic Coast Conference, and as Coach referenced, just how many things happened. You know, the league got a lot bigger, added a bunch of teams, the ACC network. He really guided this league through some tumultuous times just in college athletics.
Yeah, times of tremendous change. You know, you can say turbulent, that usually means bad, but I mean, it was a lot of things going on that changed in college athletics during John's time, and I think he did a great job of leading the ACC through that.
Do you know Jim Phillips at all, the new commissioner of the league?
No, I do not know him personally. I know of him and look forward to working with him and having some conversations, and I know that he wouldn't have been selected for this job unless he had a great deal of insight into what's good for college athletes, and I think, again, that's the thing that I'm most concerned about.
Former athletic director at Northwestern that just took over. In fact, today, first official day as the commissioner of the ACC. Coach, want to get some questions for you from Carolina fans. One that we got a bunch that has to do with the Pittsburgh game came when you, at a timeout, Jeff Capel, the head coach of Pitt, of course, was talking to some officials. You came all the way from the Carolina bench to go join the conversation. A lot of fans were just curious as what was going on.
Oh, it's you have those kind of things going on a lot. Coach Smith always used to say you should never let the other head coach have a coach's clinic with the official without you being there. And it was a little bit of that. I had zero problems with Jeff, what Jeff was saying. It's just that, it seemed like a long conversation, and whether I should have done it or not still remains to be seen, and whether it's the beauty is the eyes of the beholder. But it had zero problems with Jeff Capel. Jeff is a good friend, a guy that I've known for a long, long time, and knew his father very well, and needless to say, Jason played here. But there were zero problems with Jeff. I just sort of wanted to see what was going on.
Coach, we've talked a lot about how things have changed during the game just with the COVID time period that we're in. Has that relationship with the officials changed at all? Because I have to imagine they can hear everything that you're saying to them.
Yeah, I'm sure it's changed some because they can hear. I don't yell that much, so I don't know how much it changed with me and the officials. But, yeah, they can a lot of times you could yell something and you had no idea if they heard you or not. But now if you yell something, you pretty well understand that they did hear what you're saying. But I think it's just a new world for all of us. We've got to keep moving ahead.
We're going to keep moving ahead as well here on the show. We're going to take a timeout, come back, get to some of your questions for the head coach of the Tar Heels. It's the Roy Williams Show from Learfield, IMG College. Thanks again for joining us here on the Roy Williams Show. And big part of the show is answering your questions about Carolina basketball. And do it every single week. Again, asktheheels@gmail.com is the email address. You can also send a tweet to me. It's @JonesAngel. Angel has 2 L's at the end. We always have a bunch of good questions, but we picked the first 3 for the show. And it's our top 3 questions presented by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina, reminding you to practice your 3 W's. That is wear, wait, and wash, and resolve to keep North Carolina healthy. Let's start off one. Coach, this comes from Myron Goodman, and he said, it feels like normally this time of the season there's a clear go-to guy on the team, not necessarily on this year's Carolina team. And he wonders, do you feel that way? And in a traditional year, is that something that players kind of figure out who the go-to guy is? Is that something the coaching staff learns during practice and during games?
A little bit of both. There's no question at times in the past we've said throw the ball to so-and-so.
Sure.
There's no question about that. Right now, that so-and-sos are the big guys. They're more than one of them. Yes, Garrison is the most experienced. He's one I have the most trust in. Probably I would choose him. But Armando's shooting a great percentage. Armando's had Dayron's had some of those games that just kicked people, Notre Dame here.
Yep.
And just some big baskets in the Syracuse game here, big baskets, Wake Forest. So it depends, but I think sometimes it's easy. I used to tell our guys when Tyler Hansbrough was playing, if he didn't get 20 shots a game, then everybody's not being very intelligent, and I like to think I recruit intelligent players. So it depends on which team it is, but this team, just like you're saying yourself, that there's not one particular guy. I like Kerwin Walton from the outside. I like Armando and Garrison inside, Dayron inside. So it a little bit depends on how everybody's playing.
As far as scoring is concerned, Tar Heels very balanced in that regard. They have 5 players that are averaging more than 9 points per game. You can stretch that out to 7 players that are averaging more than 6.5 points per game. So that scoring really is as distributed on this team as anyone in recent memory for the Tar Heels.
Last year we'd get a big game from B-Rob and then not a game the next game, or we'd get a big game from somebody else. But the 2 that stood out last year, Cole Anthony for sure when he was healthy, but then Garrison, because Garrison had a phenomenal year shooting the ball in the basket, and he hasn't had it go in for him yet as much this year.
Coach, this question comes from Stalling, and Stalling wanted to know, other than just the ball going in the basket a little bit more, what improvements have you seen from your freshman guards, Caleb Love and R.J. Davis, as this season has moved along?
Well, I think they've gotten a little bit better defensively. I hope, and I always say this, and I knock on wood, because the biggest point of contention with your guards, particularly if you're a point guard, you got to keep your man in front of you. Don't get beat off the drive, and then don't turn it over.
Yep.
If you do that, I can live and try to help you with the other things. And so a big point of contention and a big negative for us early was all the turnovers. And it wasn't just, Caleb and RJ. It was Garrison, Leakey, and everybody there. But, again, I'll go back to those 2 guys. Don't turn the ball over. Keep your man in front of you, and we'll figure out a way to get some good things out of you as well. So that's both those things they've got to get a little bit better, and I think they are. but not at the speed that I want them to get better at that, and not on a consistent basis. So that's still the things we're pushing them for.
And certainly fair to say, I mean, you give your point guards a lot of responsibility. I mean, you ask them to do a lot.
Oh, it's by far the most difficult position for a freshman to play, because there's so many things you need to think about: time and score, offense, defense. You don't just run down the court and wait till somebody passes you the ball and then decide whether you shoot or not.
All right, let's get to our third of our three questions presented by Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Coach, this one comes from Adam Capps, and Adam says he has heard you say that you enjoy Kenny Chesney's music. First of all, is that correct? Is Adam correct in that?
That is correct. Kenny's a distant friend, but we've shared some things, text messages, phone calls. I've been to see him in a concert, and so we've had some good times.
So Adam says that Kenny Chesney and Coach Williams are two people on his Mount Rushmore of all-time people outside of his family. So he loves the fact that you love Kenny Chesney, and wanted to know, did you have a cool story or two or a song or two that you really enjoy from Kenny?
Oh, the best thing is Kenny's father was a high school basketball coach.
That's right.
In Tennessee for a long, long time. So I'd say that would be number one. But, no, I enjoy Kenny's music. And one that I like right now is that to sign up on the wall, everything's going to be all right. During basketball season, I need somebody to tell me that all the time. But, no, I enjoy him, and we've had a chance to have some nice visits.
Good question, Adam. Thank you for your questions.
Yep.
All the questions, we're going to get to some more, but those were our top three. Brought to you by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Again, reminding you to practice your 3 W's: wear, wait, and wash, and resolve to keep North Carolina healthy. We're going to take a break. Come back. More to do with Coach after this from Learfield IMG College. Tar Heels back in action tomorrow night, 7 o'clock against Clemson. We'll preview the matchup with the Tigers a little later in the show, but let's get to some more questions for the head coach of the Tar Heels, Roy Williams. It's his show, Roy Williams' show. Thanks so much for being with us. Coach Brian Garrison sent this one, and it's about Garrison Brooks. And NCAA, of course, has said that this year does not count necessarily for eligibility. Have you had any discussions with Garrison or Andrew Platek or anybody else about potentially returning for an extra year, considering this one, in the NCAA's eyes, does not count?
That's a conversation I'm sure I'll have at the end of the season. Right now, we're just trying to get the best we can do today at practice, get ready for tomorrow's game, those kind of things. But I'm sure we'll have those discussions at the end of our season.
Coach, a question from Lewis. Of course, Tar Heels face Duke coming up this weekend. That's after the Clemson game. But wanted to know about your thoughts just on what you enjoy about the Carolina-Duke rivalry. And also, do you feel like that rivalry may miss something this year without fans in the stands at either game?
Well, I'll do it quickly because we do have Clemson
Sure.
left, and I'm not interested in any game past Clemson. But everybody misses having the excitement of the fans in the stands. There's no question. But you still got to play the basketball game and still try to be focused on what's going on the court. And it's a fantastic rivalry that I've been very flattered to be involved in for a little perspective.
All right, let's get a couple more in here before we take a break. This one comes from Peter and said, really feels like just in watching your team that there's great consistency that is starting to form, great chemistry that is starting to form. Wanted to know, have you started to see that as well as this year has gone along?
Jones, I'll say, I don't know about great chemistry or feeling or whatever. It was something beside chemistry that he said there, but we are getting a little bit better, and I'll keep pushing that to players, fans, everybody. That's our job, is to try to get a little bit better every practice, every game, each and every day. And I think the team, I think it's a good group of kids that enjoys each other and they pull for each other. There's no question in your mind they enjoy everybody's success. It's not just their own. So that part I love. But we're getting a little bit better. I just want it to be probably a little quicker pace than we are.
Tar Heels will try to take that next step coming up against Clemson. We're going to talk about the Tigers in the final segment of the show. But, Coach, before we get to that point, listeners are going to hear a conversation Adam Lucas and I had with Tar Heel senior Walker Miller, and had a bunch of fun talking to Walker about a bunch of stuff, including, of course, basketball. But somebody who's been a part of your program now for several seasons, of course, Wes Miller's younger brother as well, a terrific Tar Heel family, and a really valuable part to what you guys do.
Fantastic family and fantastic young man who really is important to what we do. He's the leader of the blue team. It tries to run the team's offense the day before we play it, tries to press or do whatever the other team does. and that group has just been sensational for us this year. But Walker individually, enjoy him as a kid. He got a great sense of humor. Has really worked on his game. He's out there as early as anybody and stays as late as anybody, and has really meant a lot to our team's success over the last few years.
A good player. We talked to him some. He had committed to Dartmouth for a long time. He could go to a smaller school and probably play a lot, but has taken a role with the Tar Heels that is extraordinarily valuable.
It's really valuable to us, and he's enjoying the college experience. I don't know that he's enjoyed this last 10 months as much as he did the time period before that, but really is a great kid.
So, again, you'll hear some of that conversation Adam Lucas and I had with Walker Miller. That'll be after this break, and then when we return for the final segment of the show, we'll get Coach's thoughts on the upcoming matchup with Clemson. That's here on the Roy Williams Show from Learfield, IMG College. Tar Heels back on the road tomorrow night against Clemson, and Coach, a tough time to get a solid Clemson team. They're coming off a performance I know that they were not happy with against Duke, falling 79-53 on Saturday. They're going to be very motivated to be better against the Tar Heels coming up.
Well, I think they will be, and they've been motivated every time we play. And I think that what they ran into Saturday, I guess it was, against Duke was phenomenal. Oh, my gosh, that was a phenomenal game for Duke. Everybody's making shots, and so it was one of those great days for the other team and not so good for Clemson. In my opinion, Clemson and Virginia, the two best defensive teams in the league. We haven't played Duke. I haven't studied them. I'd say they're going to be up there as also before it's over with. But Florida State is tremendous defensively. But Clemson in a half-court situation really bothers you. It's something that we know that we've got to do a great job offensively, taking care of the ball. Don't turn it over. Get the shots that we want as opposed to the shots that they want us to take. They started out the year great. Mm-hmm. You know, at one time they were in the top 20 in the country, and they've hit on some tough times, but they've also played a lot of games on the road. And the last game they played at home was against a highly ranked Louisville team, and they beat Louisville. And so we've got to play one of our best games, if not our best game of the year, tomorrow night against Clemson.
Clemson was 9-1 at one point, went on had to take a pause due to some COVID problems, have not had the same success since that pause, but as Coach referenced, have some good wins too. You know, they've beaten Maryland, they've beaten Alabama, beaten Purdue, so they've beaten some good teams as they've moved through this year. And Coach Amir Sims feels like he's been there forever. He's leading scorer and rebounder. He's been one of the better players in the league for a while now.
If you were to pick one big guy in the league who can do anything, it's Amir Sims. He rebounds, he defends around the basket, he can defend out on the floor. He can shoot the three-point shot. He makes his free throws. He scores inside. I wouldn't be surprised. He's their leading scorer, leading rebounder. I wouldn't be surprised if he leads them in assists. I mean, he brings the ball up the other night in their game against Louisville, I guess it was. They got the ball to him. He was the biggest guy, and he brought it up the course against Louisville's press and played a sensational game against us last year here.
So, again, it is 7 o'clock for Carolina and Clemson in Littlejohn. Radio-wise, we'll be on the air at 6 p.m. to get you ready for that one. Coach, it's always great to see you. Thank you for your time, and best of luck this week. Look forward to talking with you again next week.
Well, if we talk next week, hopefully we can talk about some wins, Jones. Thank you very much.